months. That's nice. I'm new to the South, so I'm just getting kind of accustomed to that. That's good. Well, it's really my privilege to welcome all of you to the 3rd Annual Woodruff Arts Center Educator Conference. As Liz said, all of us here, and I speak, I'm sure, for all of my colleagues at the Alliance and the Symphony and also the Hive, when I say that we're really thrilled, and in fact, we're energized by the fact that you've all found some time, carved out some personal time to come here for a day and learn about the great resource that the Woodruff Arts Center is, and also give us an opportunity to learn from you about what your needs are and how best we can dovetail our strengths with your needs moving forward. So thank you so much for that. It's been 3 years since we first welcomed Matt Derigo to the Hive. In 2013, he spoke to the Education Department and a wonderful group of teens from the Boys and Girls Club. We were struck and inspired by his work then, and we know that you will be here this morning as well. Matt Derigo is the founder and CEO of A Reason to Survive, or ARTS, the nationally recognized creative youth development organization dedicated to changing the life trajectory of youth facing adversity through the arts and creativity. Derigo's work through arts has been the subject of the Academy Award-winning documentary In Ascente, featured on the Today Show, profiled in the New York Times best-selling book Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath, and in Darius Graham's book Being the Difference, True Stories of Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things to Change the World. He is the chair for the National Arts Education Advisory Council for Americans for the Arts, sits on the Creative Youth Development Working Group for the National Guild for Community Arts Education, and sits on the Pomegranate Center's National Advisory Board. Derigo is a sought-after speaker, advocate, and advisor on the importance of arts education, creative youth development, the transformative power of the arts on children and communities, and pursuing one's passion and purpose in life. Now please join me in welcoming Matt to the stage.
Thank you, Rand, for that very kind introduction. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that it is 5:45 a.m. in San Diego, where I just came from, so bear with me until the coffee kicks in and we can all kind of wake up together this morning. It's a true honor to be asked to come speak with you this morning as you embark on the next 3 days of learning how to best bring the arts and creativity into your schools and classrooms. I'm always encouraged when I come to these conferences or speak at these conferences to see how many people still hold the arts and arts education in high regard and as a top priority for the well-rounded education of our students in our schools. So thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules, I know you all have a lot going on, to go through some professional development on how to best do that in your own school environments. So I read that you will be investigating and celebrating the relationship between tradition and transformation in the arts and education. And I'm here today to talk with you a little bit about the transformative power of the arts. I was here probably 2 or 3 years ago with one of our former students, Innocente, to screen a documentary named after her that told the story of her life as a homeless teenager and the power of arts to transform her life. And if you haven't seen the documentary yet, I highly encourage that you watch it and even share it with your students. It's easily to download on iTunes, but it's a very powerful film that really shows the power of arts to transform a young life. So as mentioned, I'm the founder of an organization called Arts, A Reason to Survive, and that's what we're in the business of doing, transforming students' lives through arts and creativity. And we just updated our mission statement. Not a lot of people have seen this, so this is the first public forum that we're sharing it. And hopefully there it is. So it's to ignite the power of creativity in youth, inspiring them to overcome obstacles, and providing them with the skills needed to become compassionate catalysts for positive change in themselves, their community, and the world. Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Right? Good. Thank you. I'll let our board know that you guys approved. But in reality, that's all of our mission here, right? Anybody that works in education or youth development or after-school programming, we really want to ignite the creativity and curiosity in our students. We want to inspire them to overcome those obstacles in life, growing up in this very complex world. We want to give them the skills and tools needed to become compassionate catalyst for change, for transformation in themselves and those around them. However, in reality, it's becoming more and more difficult to accomplish this, especially to ignite creativity in youth in the school and classroom environment when the system really isn't set up for that. It's more set up to the test, to teach to the test and test scores. So it's really hard to infuse and incorporate arts and arts education into our classroom, but it's not impossible. You know, it's interesting. Arts is an after-school community-based program, but we do spend a lot of time in schools. We're not in the classroom, but what we do is we go into school environments and we transform them. We go in and do these large arts installations, murals, public works of art, and help transform their environment. And we always end it with a huge unveiling, a celebration of the artwork. And we'll bring out the kindergartners and we'll talk with them a little bit and say, who here's an artist? And all the kids' hands go up, they're holding their hands up, they're giving each other high fives, they love, they're all artists. First grade comes out, same thing, hands are going up. Second grade, third grade, less and less hands. You get to middle school, high school, maybe a couple of hands go up over to the side, maybe there's some giggling or snickering about the artists over there. Why is that? And can I get a show of hands? How many people here are artists? Okay, that's pretty good. Good. So you guys were, you know, there's a quote from Sir Ken Robinson. You know, we don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it. Or rather, we get educated out of it. Right? Yeah. It's such a true statement. But people like Rob, who works for arts, didn't get educated out of it. In fact, his title at arts is Director of Creativity. So, sorry, the coffee hasn't kicked in yet, so to that quote, you know, we live in a society and an education system that separates the arts and zaps the creativity out of our lives. We make the arts this unapproachable, improbable thing, an intimidating thing. You ask a lot of teachers to teach art in their classroom and just look at fear, like, I can't do that. That's why we have these conferences to learn how to do it. Yet the arts are so ingrained and integrated into our daily lives, you can't separate them. So we really can't separate them out of the classroom, and the arts need to be integrated and included and not removed from our schools. And although many of you might not see yourselves as artists, you engage in the arts every single day without even realizing it. They truly shape and influence our lives and who we are each day. And I can't really think anything else that has more of a powerful influence over us than the arts. From the time you wake up in the morning to when you put your head down the pillow at night, we're always interacting with the arts. And did you wake up in your house this morning, or condo, or near the hotel? Architecture, right? Was it decorated to reflect your taste and style? Interior design? Did you get dressed today? Looks like you all did. You look fabulous, by the way. We dress to reflect our styles and our tastes. So, fashion. Did you listen to music this morning on your ride over? See, you're giggling. Some of you did this, either in the car, in the shower, or getting ready. You see, the arts make us who we are. They reflect our tastes, our personalities, and allow us to express ourselves, even though we're not artists. The arts are powerful because they provide us with and help us to create our identities, who we are. I mean, the two ultimate questions we have in life, I believe, are, who am I, and what am I doing here, right? And if you find the answer to the first, your identity, it'll help lead you to the answer to the second, because a sense of identity gives you a sense of purpose. And so it was in art that I found my own purpose. To say I struggled academically in school is a vast understatement. I had a hard time focusing. I had a hard time learning the way that I was being taught. I was lost and confused, and I saw myself as a failure. And, back then they didn't have a lot of diagnoses like ADD or ADHD or learning disabilities. I was diagnosed with being lazy, unmotivated, a troublemaker, and to be honest, they built a pretty good case against me. And luckily for you guys, my dad collected a lot of evidence over the years to support that case. I don't know if you can see this. This is an actual test, my spelling test from first grade. I'm sure you can see the red. I got a 30 on it. And then you can see, please have signed. So I don't know if you guys can notice anything peculiar about it, besides my ability to spell thing, yet, and moon, and my name. But at the very top, you can't barely make it out. I also spelled two other words correctly, Pat and Joe. Who do you think Pat and Joe are? My parents. Right? So I took it upon myself not to bother my parents to sign. And I remember this very day. I remember walking into my kitchen and casually just asked my mom, how do you spell Pat? Her name's Patricia. And she's like, P-A-T? I'm like, okay. How do you spell Joe? J-O-E. And then I kind of went up to my room and I remember there was a red chair. And I remember being on that chair and just trying my hardest with the P and the A to write as clear as I could. And I went in the next day and put it on the teacher's, and she kind of looked at me like, you're kidding. So your parents didn't sign this? I'm like, yeah, they did. I'm like, I'm very confident. Sure they did. Yep, they did. Turns out the principal didn't believe her either, so I'm sure my parents got a good kick out. I've got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old now, and I'm like, to have my kids come home and do this, I don't know if I'd laugh or cry or just go to a therapist. I was actually talking to a psychologist friend of mine, and I was telling him the story, I'm like, what's that all about? He's like, well, I see it as creative problem solving. I'm like, yeah, let's go with that. That sounds good. So that pretty much sums up my academic career right there. And it got a little bit better, but I love this quote from Einstein. Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Yeah. And that was me. I felt like I was stupid for a long time. I didn't know what was wrong with me until 6th grade. And I had a great teacher, Mrs. Ferguson. And she wasn't an art teacher, but she was my homeroom teacher and she was our science teacher, which is always a correlation between the arts and science. But she was a great artist, and I always looked up to her. I always loved seeing her drawings and her paintings. And one day she said 5 words that changed my life forever. I didn't know it at the time. Reflecting back, it changed my life trajectory. And I think we're taking a break. I think she wasn't the art teacher, but she was having us draw. And she came up behind me, I remember, coming over my right hand shoulder, and she said, looked at my drawing, and said, wow, that is really great. And I kind of straightened up a little bit, and all these kids came around and shared her enthusiasm. And they're like, oh, how do you do that? Can you teach me how to do that? And in that moment, I found an identity. I was an artist. I wasn't a failure anymore. And so I carried that identity and that confidence with me to this very day. That's why I believe that taking the arts, arts education out of schools is one of the truest forms of identity theft. Not allowing kids like myself, these artists, to find out who they truly are. And by taking the arts out of schools, not only are you sending them the message that the arts are important, but you're sending the message that those students like me are important. That their true talents, their strengths, and their interests are not worthy, and they're not valued, so they're not valued. And what kind of message is that sending to our youth? Isn't that what education should be all about? Sparking curiosity and helping students discover the world and how it works, and then helping them to discover their own identity and their own talents and strengths to see how they fit into that world. For me, the arts were a key component to understand how I fit into this world. It's our job not just to provide content to these kids, to our students, but also context. Context of all the world has to offer, and also what our students have to offer the world. The other role of education traditionally has been to prepare students for jobs and careers. You know, the education system was built on during the Industrial Revolution to provide a workforce for manufacturing and industry. And that's gone by the wayside. Obviously, we live in a whole new world. And quite honestly, we don't know what the world will be like in 20 years, 15 years, or even 5 years. So how are we going to prepare our students for this workforce? But I do know that there is one consistent and one skill that will be needed no matter what, and that's creativity. It's creativity and innovation that drives us forward, that drives the human race forward. That's what's happening right now. We've got all this creativity and innovation that's just happening at light speed. So creativity is something that all students will need to be successful in life. IBM did a study a few years ago where they interviewed and surveyed all the top CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies. And all these businessmen and women identified creativity as the #1 skill needed for the 21st century workforce. So all these people in business, I recognize that. And all the other skills that were like in the top 10 were things that could be taught through the arts. Things like resilience, creative problem solving, teamwork, adaptability. So the arts are really an integral part for preparing our students for the 21st century workforce. And for youth, it's also a accessible vehicle for all students to learn creativity, not just the artists in your class. And also the arts, in particular like arts integration, is a phenomenal vehicle for all students, not just artists in class, to learn across all subject matters. And although I struggled throughout my academic career, it was the arts that really got me through, just knowing that I was good at something, but also it helped me learn other subject matters a little bit more easily than traditional teaching methods. But more importantly, arts became my go-to outside of the classroom. You know, throughout life, especially growing up, you know, I had a loving family, I had a great family, but I really struggled with self-confidence and self-esteem and a few other issues. Like emails maybe popping up. All right. I don't know how to fix that, so we'll just wait, we'll go with it. But as I said, art became my go-to. Whenever I needed to feel confident, to escape the world, or to find hope. And that time really came for me when I was 19 and I was a freshman in college. I actually went to college just down the 85 from here at Spring Hill College in Mobile, Alabama. And I used to come to Atlanta a lot to come to concerts and do things that probably weren't as productive for my academic career. But my freshman year, we got some devastating news that my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And if that wasn't bad enough, about 4 months later, my sister, Kate, was diagnosed with cancer. So my mom was 47 at the time, and my sister was 21. And so I stayed home that following year to help around the house and help care for them as they both struggled through chemotherapy and radiation. It was extremely hard, as you can imagine, and my whole life's landscape had changed. And with it, a range of emotions that were extremely difficult to process. Everything from anger and sadness to guilt and despair and hopelessness. So I went to my art. Every day I would escape to my bedroom, close the door, put on music, and paint. And time would stand still, hours would go by, and it was my refuge. And I'd find myself at the end of those sessions just in a totally different place, full of hope and joy. And it just struck me one day, how powerful is that? And I knew if it worked for me, it would work for other kids like me, creative and artistic kids who were facing their own struggles or pain and needed a way out and needed a positive way to cope with their struggles. And so I sat down and got a piece of paper and created a little business plan for a nonprofit. And growing up, my parents were involved with nonprofits, so I knew what they were and how they functioned. So I sat and then just kind of wrote this one-pager. I wanted to create a safe environment for kids to escape. Like I had my bedroom to go to. I wanted to create an art center where kids could just explore all art forms, leave the world behind them, express themselves, feel some hope and joy again. And so I was sitting there, and kind of thinking, getting creative, like, what would I name this organization? And just think about what the arts did for me. And there was a song on at the time, so full disclosure, I'm a big Grateful Dead fan. And I used to come to Atlanta to the old Omni to see the Grateful Dead back in the day. And there's a song called Touch of Grey. And the chorus, the repetitive chorus is, I will get by, I will survive. And I thought, art gives me a reason to survive. And I just sat there and I wrote that down, and it jumped out at me. A reason to survive, A-R-T-S. Boom. I was like, that's a sign. And I'll talk about signs in a minute, but that was a sign. This was my purpose in life. It all made sense. I was given these artistic skills and passion. And the other thing I noticed growing up is that I had a lot of compassion and empathy for other people. I always wanted to help other people. So that was my identity. And this helped me find my purpose. And so about 10 years later, I went back to Spring Hill College, got my degree, and it wasn't until 10 years later that I actually found myself in a time and place in my life where I was ready to commit and create the organization. So my sister, who recovered, bought me a book on how to start a nonprofit, Chapter 1, Board of Directors, Mission, Vision, Values, Bylaws, Articles of Incorporation. Submitted that all. I mean, we didn't have a lawyer. Didn't have money for a lawyer, so I submitted it, and it all passed. It was like one of the first times I passed something. The first try, and I didn't need a law degree, so I was pretty proud of myself. But I was very passionate and dedicated, so I really focused on getting it right. And so we were off to the races, and this was in July 2001. We're ready to raise money and create this art center. So about 2 months later, 9/11 happened, and the economy went into recession. So we learned fairly quickly that how hard raising money was, and that the dream of an art center was not any time near in the future. And so I got creative and adapted and said, well, how else can we accomplish this mission? And so we decided to go to where these kids were, partnering with hospitals, Children's Hospital, Mrs. Luley, who I worked with for a long time, and unfortunately she passed away, but we had an incredible, probably year together of helping her express herself through the arts. Hospitals, homeless shelters, domestic violence shelters, group homes. This is Alexis. That's actually me, a skinnier version of me. Alexis actually just graduated 2 weeks ago from high school. So she wants to be a lawyer, so, which is great. But we were doing it. We were implementing, we created the organization, and my purpose had come true. I was doing what I loved. People say, do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. I'm calling total BS on it. It's bullshit. Excuse me. As you guys know, you guys went into education because you're passionate about it, it's your purpose, but it's hard, right? Yeah, it's really hard. And so if you feel like giving up, you will need a reason to survive. But it's that passion and that dedication and that sense of purpose will see you through those times and bring your work ethic and your dedication to a whole new level. You also have to have faith, and you have to believe in serendipity and luck, because they are a major part of success. I'm a big believer of the term, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And as hokey as it may sound, I already mentioned it once, but you have to ask for and look for signs. Signs that you're on the right path, because you'll question yourself. You'll question your sanity throughout your pursuit of helping students, whether in the classroom or running a nonprofit organization. And looking for these signs not only has gotten me through some difficult times, but it has been transformational for me and the organization. And I'll share with you a couple of examples, because I want to continue talking about the organization, how it evolved over the years. I remember, not too shortly after this picture was taken, maybe in year 2, where I found myself looking in my couch for change to eat. And I wasn't making any money, we weren't raising any money. And I looked in the couch the day before. I knew I'd already looked in there. I looked in the pockets, there wasn't any change. And it's one of those things we really reevaluate everything. I said, this isn't really what I thought it would be. And so I called my dad, who's my biggest cheerleader. He said, no, stick with it. You've got it. You're doing a great job. Stick with your mission. And he had started his own company and worked through a lot of issues. And so I trusted him. But at the same time, like, I need to eat. And so I asked for a sign. I said, okay, we had this large grant out at the time. It was for like $100,000. More money than we had ever seen. And it was a long shot because we were still a fairly new organization. And I said, okay, if we get the grant, we persevere, we move on, and we continue the work we're doing. It's a sign that we're doing the right thing. If we don't get it, I don't care what my dad says, maybe I'll hand it off to somebody else, but I need a job where I can eat. And so obviously we got the grant. And it was, as I said, $100,000 from the California endowment, because they too believed in the power of the arts to transform kids' lives, especially those facing health or mental health issues. And so that was very validating. And the hope was that, well, if they thought, maybe others would join. And they did. We grew. Lots of people, as soon as people saw that the California endowment gave to us, it was almost like a stamp of approval. And people started giving to us. So over the next 6 years, we were still outreach program, going to hospitals and homeless shelters. We grew from 2 to 3 outreach locations to about 25. And after about 6 years, we finally got enough support to open the first art center in 2007. And it was a beautiful 7,000 square foot facility, visual art space, media art space, music space. We had a gallery, our offices. It was great. The dream had finally come true. We had our art center. What else happened in 2007? The financial meltdown, right? So I've never been accused of having good timing. So I started an organization during a recession. I opened a facility during one of the worst economic crises in the country. Not good timing on my part, but we persevered. It was really difficult though. Layoffs, furloughs, cutting programs, and it was really frustrating because we could see the transformation that was happening with our students. And if only other people could see it. And they did, but literally there was no money to give. And foundations and individuals really were tapped. And so once again, I hit a wall. I said, do I go on? Do I have the energy to keep going? I mean, I was really tired at the time. After a few years of trying to run the art center and the organization. So I asked for a sign. I said, give me some direction. About a week or two later, I walked in my office on a Monday morning, and the phone rang. And it was some filmmakers, Sean Fine and Andrea Nix Fine, who were documentary filmmakers. I'd never heard of them, but they saw a statistic that 1 in 45 youth in America experience homelessness. 1 in 45 here in America, the wealthiest, most powerful country in the world. And we've got kids who experience homelessness. It was shocking to them, it's shocking to me, it should be shocking to everybody. And so they wanted to highlight that story. They wanted to bring that story to light so everybody would be aware of it. And they wanted to tell the story through the eyes of a teenager, a homeless teenager. Not only that, but a homeless teenager who dreamt of being an artist. Because they too believed that the arts were a powerful force for transformation for children and youth. And they wanted to use the power of film, their art form, to show that to the world. And so I introduced them to a young woman in the organization, and her name was Innocente, who I mentioned earlier. And this is her story.
Dear people of the world, just because I'm homeless doesn't mean I don't have a life, because I do have a life. I'm a girl who likes to jump in puddles and likes flowers. When I paint, I feel happy, so it's a good way to start my mornings. Just paint on something. And what better place than my face? Kids at my school don't know that I'm homeless. If people would find out, they'd probably make fun of me. Not having a home is like not having somewhere safe to go to.
La tomé del brazo y le dije, vente, vámonos para aquel puente que está allá. y nos vamos a aventar al mar tú y yo. No te quiero escuchar llorar.
And I'm still waiting for that one day that will change my life. I think my life depends on me being an artist. I think if I don't become an artist, I probably not just let everyone down, but mostly let myself down.
Blackest night, dark in the sun, in the rain, color me.
And although people think they know me, they know nothing of my life. The woman's belly I came out of will never know what I go through at first sight.
Living together right now is not working. There's lots of stress.
Quisiera abrazarla, darle los besos que dejé de darle desde que tenía 6 años.
This is her first opportunity to prove to herself that she's on the right path in life and to show the world who she is and where she's come from.
I don't know if I'm strong or whatever, but I think it's about time that I go my own way.
Powerful, right? Powerful stuff, right? I mean, the ability for the arts to bring a young, homeless, undocumented teenager from the streets of San Diego to the stage of the Academy Awards.
And here are the nominees for Best Documentary Short Subject.
Inocente, Sean Fine and Andrea Nix Fine. Kings Point, Sarah Gilman and Jed Wider. Mondays at Racine, Cynthia Wade and Robin Hogan. Open Heart, Keith Davidson and Corey Shepard Stern. Redemption, John Alpert and Matthew O'Neill.
And the Oscar goes to Inocente, Sean Fine and Andrea Nix.
This is the first Academy Award and second nomination for Sean Fine and Andrea Nix Fine. They received their first nomination for their film War Dance in the documentary feature category.
Thank you so much for this. We just want to thank quickly our amazing producer, Albie Hector, went the distance with us, and Susan and Yael and Ryan and Jeff can see they're incredible editor who's with us on all of our artistic exploits.
And most of all, we want to thank this young lady who was homeless just a year ago, and now she's standing in front of all of you.
Yeah.
And she's an artist, and all of you are artists, and we feel like we need to start supporting the arts. They're dying in our communities, and all of us are artists, and we need to stand up and help girls like her be seen, like her. And it's so important.
I still get emotional watching that. It was an incredible night. I was fortunate to be there with her and then celebrate afterwards and go to the Vanity Fair after party and all that fun stuff. But again, it shows the power of the arts to really transform lives, if just given the opportunity. I'm just glad that I never gave up and that I didn't throw in the towel, or incredible moments like that would never have happened. Just as our students need resiliency and grit, so do we as educators and leaders in our schools to ensure that we're providing those opportunities to those innocentes in our classrooms. The last story of perseverance I want to share with you, because I kind of want to bring you up to speed of where arts has come over the past few years. So in 2011, 4 years after we moved into that original art center, before Innocente won the documentary, we kind of hit a crossroads. Again, tail end of the financial crisis, and we didn't have any money. Our lease was up, and they were increasing our rent. And so we had to make some really tough decisions. How do we go forward as an organization? Could we move into another facility? It'd have to be a lot cheaper. That's hard to find in San Diego. Do we go back to being an outreach program? It was really tough for me because the dream had always been to have an arts center. We really have the belief that a place is really important. Not only engagement in the arts changes moods, attitudes, and behaviors, but place and environments changes attitudes, moods, attitudes, and behaviors. And I was personally questioning, as the founder of the organization, is it time for me to move on? Should somebody else come in with a little bit more energy? Then again, I was a little bit tired again. That can lead the organization to the next stage. And so I needed a sign what to do and how to move forward next. And I remember talking to our COO about, I said, in an ideal world, if the universe was going to give us a gift, we'd need a much larger facility that was greatly reduced rent or cost, embedded in the community that desperately needed our services. And the art center we were in was great, but it was a little bit outside these communities, and so we'd bring kids from there. We started a transportation program called Van Go, and so we'd pick the kids up and bring them. Thank you, creative. But that solved our transportation issue. We got a grant and started transporting the kids, because I think, as many of you know, funding and transportation are two of the biggest roadblocks to getting kids access to the arts. So we're at a crossroads, and I was talking to the COO about it, and just then our IT volunteer, this guy Damon, popped his head up. He was working on one of our computers. He said, "Hey, you guys need a building, a facility?" I said, "Yeah, we're kind of trying to figure out our next step." He said, "Well," and Damon is the lead IT guy for the city of National City, which is just south of San Diego. He's like, "Well, we've got a building down in National City." I said, "Okay, well, what does it look like? A lot of tenant improvements, like what do we need to do?" He's like, "Well, no, it's an art center, and it's empty." I said, "What? What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, about 5 years ago, we built a new library. We got redevelopment funds and built this beautiful new library, and we didn't know what to do with the old library. And we had about $2 million left in redevelopment funds, and so we asked the community, what should we do with the building? And they said, "Yeah, we want an art center." So they put $2 million in and remodeled the whole library into a community arts center. Problem was, they didn't have staff to run it. So they had the ribbon cutting, and pretty much it stayed empty. There was another group in there for a short period, a theater group who had the intent to do community programming, but they never built the capacity, so they were just using it for the rehearsals and to build sets and scenery. So I went down and took a look at it, and lo and behold, it was a 20,000 square foot art center. Talk about signs, right? It's legit. Look for those signs. And so we then met with city council and the mayor, and we stated our case, and we moved into our new, beautiful 20,000 square foot facility. So it was 3 times the size of our existing art center. It was half the price. Not only that, but what's happened over the last 3 years is that the city now contracts us for services more than we pay in rent, so they're actually paying us to be there. So, right? And it's embedded in a community that desperately needs our services. National City, it's a city, it's separate than San Diego, it's its own mayor and city council. About 60,000 people, but it is the poorest city in San Diego County. It's very urban. Industry and manufacturing and the naval yard is the main employment. Not a lot of people come to National City. The main reason you come to National City is for a mile of cars. It's where it's a mile of car dealerships. So there's no other reason to really get off the exit unless you're buying a car or work for the Navy. And the city recognized that. And they said, we need to change some perceptions. And one way to do it is through arts. And so that's one of the reasons why they brought us in. And so over the last few years, we established the Art Center, which is really our hub for arts education. It's the exposure, the exploration, and the engagement in the arts. Multidisciplinary, so we've got everything from fine arts, painting, printmaking, drawing, to music, to media arts. I need to look, like, I don't always remember all of them. Media arts, dance, theater, industrial arts, carpentry and welding, and literary arts. It's a playground for creativity, for students to explore and see where they can find their voice. Because a lot of our students, when we serve, they don't have options. They can't just sign up for various classes normally out in the community. So really important for them to explore and see which medium they can sink their teeth into. The center has also become kind of a hub, a safe place for kids to come after school and on weekends. And when we moved there, we didn't want to create the center for the community. We wanted to create it with the community. So families and artists and community members have really made the Art Center what it is. It's a continual work of art in progress. I go in there, especially after trips like this, I'll probably go back and there'll be some kind of new art installation there. But we saw the power that that had of building community and connectiveness and that sense of ownership and pride. And so a year or two ago, we asked ourselves, why does it have to be just one building in National City? Why can't the community be beautiful and vibrant and have a sense of ownership? And so we started, thank you for that clap, right? Because it's great to have one place, but really we need to integrate into the fabric of the community. And so we created an initiative called Creating Vibrant Neighborhoods. And it is a arts-based civic and community revitalization effort led by our students. So our students are working with professional artists, designers, landscape architects, community leaders, business leaders to identify blighted and forgotten or misused spaces throughout the community and reimagine them artistically and create beautiful environments. So for example, this was a park that had been forgotten, a little pocket park called Butterfly Park. Not a lot of butterflies, but a lot of drinking and drugs and homeless activity. So we held a bunch of community meetings and said, we've got this budget, we've got these students, we've got some artists. What do we want to do with the space? And over a 4-month period, we came up with conceptuals and designs, and then over a 4-day period, we turned it into this, right? So much more, the butterfly wing that acts as a stage and some seating and some beds, and so, but there's a sense of ownership, and that was about 2 years ago we did that one, and again, the community owns it, they steward it, so if there's any, which is rare, tagging or graffiti, they'll call arts or the city right away and it'll be cleaned up, so that's, they're really taking ownership of their space. National City has a very high rate of a rental rate, not a lot of homeowners there, so having this sense of community ownership is huge. Another space was this forgotten lot that was more of a homeless gathering, and we pulled 39 hypodermic needles out of this space, right? But then we turned it into this beautiful gathering space for the community. So that transformation of space and environment changes moods, attitude, and behavior. And when you've got not just an artist coming in to do it, but you've got community members, you've got students working next to the mayor, city council, and business leaders, it strengthens the fabric of the community. So we run the Art Center, we've got Creating Vibrant Neighborhoods, and the most recent thing we've launched is Arts Enterprises. And so this is really for our high school and college-age youth, to give them the hard and soft job skills needed to find a fulfilled path in life. And so one of them is, the first one we're launching is an Upcycled furniture line. So as I mentioned, National City has a lot of manufacturing, so there's lots of pallets, there's lots of metal that's discarded, so we take that and turn it into beautiful furniture. And here we have Martha and Allie, two of our apprentices, and now we've hired them as employees of the organization. Martha is studying at City College, and she's an incredible welder. I mean, she got her own custom pink helmet, she's got this pink tool belt. I mean, this is what she does, so she loves it. And Allie, who has a really difficult story, life story, didn't know what she wanted to do, and through this program, now she's going to study industrial design in Los Angeles. And so we've been able to provide her with a meaningful life path. So we've created this long-term program model for our students to move through and meet them where they need, wherever their needs are, if they're to move them from crisis to college or career, supporting them with therapeutic arts programming to job training through the arts and creativity. The other thing I forgot to mention is that all of our students are supported by a student service department. And that includes social workers and counselors, college and career advisors, and leadership coaches. And so it's a really strong foundation to support our kids while they're learning all these artistic skills. It's an amazing organization that's grown over the last 15 years from me, showing my hands with Alexis, to volunteering by myself at Ron McDowell House, to this really vibrant organization it's come to be today. And just from a single idea, from a single kid who barely could spell or make it through school, and I'm not saying that to toot my horn by any means, it's accomplished through a huge ecosystem of people. But my point is that none of this is possible without people, right? Whether it's an individual person or a collective group of people dedicating themselves, believing in something, and persevering through it all. All of us in this room have the opportunity to change the life trajectory of students, especially through the arts. Just like Mrs. Ferguson in 6th grade for me, we have the power to change students' lives, even with just a couple of words. You know, we have to remember that our words and actions have great power over our students, whether for good or for bad. And so don't underestimate that power of your words and actions. You know, I forgot some slides, I'm sorry. This is some of our furniture, isn't that beautiful? It's one of the chairs, and then those are pallets. So they create these chevron tables out of pallets and metal. So again, just want to highlight some of the furniture. It's not this is funky recycled stuff. This stuff is going in restaurants, and our donors are buying them, so it's a viable business. We also have some more funky stuff for those funky people out there. So what I was saying is that it's an honor to work with students. It's a tremendous opportunity. It can also be extremely frustrating and overwhelming working within a greater system, whether it's the education system that makes it hard to bring the arts, or whether it's a nonprofit system, which I work within. We're going to be facing struggles. So please don't give up. Persevere. I mean, all of you are here today for a reason, because you believe the arts are an important part of the holistic role of educating our kids. So have faith, look for those signs, and persevere. And please, whatever you do, don't give up on those kids or that child in your class who might not fit in the box, who might get distracted and have a tough time learning, who might cause a little mayhem or bring in a signed test from his or her parents. They're not failures, they're not stupid, and they don't mean to be troublemakers. Maybe they're just an artist, and you could be their Mrs. Ferguson. Thank you. Go out there and learn how to bring the arts into your classroom. Have a great time. Enjoy the next 3 days.
Okay, so before everybody takes off for your first morning concurrent session, let's have a really quick round of applause for Matt Tirigo for kicking off the